We have very important characteristics in our spirituality. It is not a generical spirituality, but it is precisely Vincentian spirituality. First, the first characteristic, Vincentian spirituality arises from contact with the poor. In St. Vincent's experience, it is the poor he meets who make burst forth from him the spark of his charity. The contact with the poor is the point of departure. Second, Vincentian spirituality grows then by contact with Jesus Christ. Vincentian spirituality is nourished by contact with Jesus Christ. It does not aim to bring Christ to the poor, but rather sees Christ in the poor. To love the poor person is to love Jesus Christ. To serve the poor person is to serve Jesus Christ. There is identity between Jesus Christ and the poor. This is a special characteristic. Third, Vincentian spirituality is a mystical experience, not in the usual sense of the word, mystical experience as ecstasy or escape from reality, but a mystic of the poor in the sense that experiencing the poor is experiencing Christ. Giving one's life to the poor is giving life to Christ. Fourth, Vincentian spirituality is social promotion of the poor. It is a particular experience of faith based on the discernment of God's will in our life, on our mission in the world, which is to commit ourselves to the social promotion of the poor person. Do you remember the 17 goals that Teresa Coturan said to us yesterday? God's will is there. There in these goals we have to look for the God's will, not elsewhere. That is, Vincentian spirituality leads to systemic change for many reasons. Because it is not an intimate spirituality, but rather is directed to action. It is both affective and effective, concrete, cordially and concrete. It is not a disembodied spirituality, but it influences the concrete life of the poor, both the concrete life of the poor and the social structure that impoverished so many people. Life of the poor, the individual person, and social structures. Lastly, it unites action and contemplation, prayer and service, faith and charity. St. Paul and St. James. Not faith without works not works without faith. So, our spirituality consists in following Christ, imitating some concrete models whom Agostino presented yesterday. You remember? These examples are Vincent de Paul, Luis de Marillac, Federico Zanam, Rosalie Rendu, and many others. In the life of St. Vincent de Paul, especially, there are some elements, some life experiences which can be interpreted as seeds of what we today call systemic change in our charitable activity. Let us look at them together, trying to bring them into our personal life experience. The concept of systemic change is a modern one. It is pretty new. It was unknown to St. Vincent and his contemporaries. Like all of us today, Vincent accepted as given and sometimes as God-given many of the structures that surrounded him. They were like the air he breathed. For the most part, he simply took them for granted. Vincent was born and died in multi-child society with a monarchy, nobility, clerics, and peasants. He would never dream about changing those structures radically, as revolutionary France did 150 years later. But within the context of his time, Vincent expressed many ideas related to systemic change. It is useful for us to examine these seminal thoughts, since they help us to situate a systemic change mentality in the spirituality of the Vincentian family today. First point, St. Vincent spoke about affective and effective love. And we speak today of changing social structures. This full phrase, which Vincent repeated over and over again, is that our love is to be both affective and effective. He says, for example, the love of a daughter of charity is not only tender, it is effective, because they serve the poor concretely. Today we are conscious that sin affects not just individuals, it deeply affects social structure too. It becomes embodied in unjust laws, power-based economic relationships, inequitable treaties, artificial boundaries, oppressive governments, and numerous other obstacles to harmonious societal relationships. Some of these unjust societal structures keep the poor poor. You remember the Luke's parable of the Good Samaritan, which dramatized the principle that love of God is displayed in love of neighbor. But today, we recognize more and more that effective love involves not just binding up the individual victim's wounds and pouring oil on them, but also making sure that the road from Jerusalem to Jericho is safe for all in the future. Do you remember what Jim emphasized yesterday? Taking the words from Federico Zanam. Charity is not enough. We need also justice. Second point. Vincent was deeply convinced that what we say and what we do must reinforce one another. Witness authenticates words. What we say is credible only if our actions corroborate it. In other words, Vincent sees witness, service, preaching, and teaching as complementary to one another and as integral to the evangelization process. Today, the unity between witness, evangelization, and human promotion, so much a part of Vincent's spirit, is one of the main emphases in the church social teaching. Jim will go back on this later on. First do, then teach. That is Vincent's rule for effective evangelization. St. Vincent loved to say that we minister to the poor spiritually and corporally. He used this phrase in speaking to the three principal groups he founded: the confraternities of charity, the congregation of the mission, and daughters of charity. He tells the daughters of charity that they should not attend not only to bodily needs, but also share their faith with the poor by their witness and their words. And he warns the members of the congregation of the mission that they should not think of their mission in exclusively spiritual terms. Rather, they too should care for the sick, the foundlings, the insane, even the most abandoned. So, Vincent encouraged his followers to examine various elements in the lives of the poor, to see what their most urgent needs were: nourishment, health care, education, job opportunities, and spiritual care. He focused on the whole person and wanted to treat the person holistically, we say today, holistically, in all his needs. Vincent wanted quality, competence, gentleness, and respect to characterize the service provided in a project, in our service to the poor. He insisted that not only should we do good, but that we should do it well, with adequate resources, and at the same time with the warmth and concern. To encourage quality service, he returned repeatedly to the fundamental vision that inspired his entire life and work. Seeing Christ in the person of the poor. He stated this eloquently to daughters of charity. This is what obliges you to serve the poor with respect as your master and with devotion, that they represent for you the person of our Lord, who said, "Whatever you do for one of those, the least of my brothers and sisters, I will consider it as done to me." When he gathered the initial group of women to form a confraternity of charity at Châtillon-les-Dames in November 1617, Vincent stated, in the rule he composed for them, that the poor sometimes suffer more from a lack of order in the help offered them rather than from a lack of charitable persons who want to help. Maybe it is so today. So he organized them. He believed that well-intentioned charity must also be well organized, that it must be planned and executed with precision and care. Vincent was a precise planner and organizer. For sure, this was one of his greatest gifts. It helped make these works effective. So, let's take some minutes to reflect on these first 5 characteristics. Let us reflect on this question. Which of these first 5 seeds do you find present in your own work among the poor? Some minutes of personal reflection and then brief sharing with brothers and sisters at your table.